Nick Papadopoulos, welcome to the Preconstruction podcast.
Hey, pleasure to be here. Thanks for your
Good.
time.
Yeah, really looking forward to this one. We've been in dialogue for quite a while, but I know you're a big leader within the pre-construction data world. So I wanted to get you on and pick your brain a little bit and get your thoughts on what's happening right now and what's going to happen in the future.
Very good.
Good. So before we do that, let's quickly get a quick overview, a quick bio. For anybody that doesn't know you, Nick, what's your background?
So I'm an import. I was born in Greece, came here as a young lad, born in a tiny little village outside of Sparta. Very humble beginnings. The village got running water in 1982 to kind of put it in perspective of how, humble the roots are. And then, classic family coming over, 5 families living in a house, eventually, you can afford an apartment and all that kind of thing. So really grew up in classic immigrant story. And then father was a teacher, but then got into construction and started me working in construction when I was about 10. And then just kind of grew up from the family and started as pushing a broom and ended up running the company. And then went to undergraduate at Virginia Tech and got a building construction degree there. And then ended up at the University of Florida and got a master's in it as well.
Brilliant.
So that was my background in construction.
And was it always construction for you? I know it tends early. For instance, my background, I was kind of taking the eye off the ball with sport and even IT at a certain stage. Was it always going to be construction for you?
Well, not exactly. So I went to school thinking I was going to be an engineer, right? Either a civil or a structural engineer. And then I realized that was just not the place for me. I didn't want to be parked behind a desk and that I had just I wanted to take more risk. And so I realized, there's a real formal structure to the construction market that takes you into much more complex projects, much more complex issues. And I really started to like it and I thrived in that environment and it just sort of took off from there. So
Brilliant.
yeah.
Brilliant. And I'm always intrigued why people do masters. Well, not why they do them. We understand why they do them, but was there a specific idea you had in mind going into your masters in Florida? Was there an idea, once I get this masters, this is what I'm going to use it for?
It was actually so I had a chance to experience a product back in 1986. It was the original Timberline DOS product. For a lot of your viewers, they probably have never heard of DOS, but there was something before Windows, and DOS was the operating system then. And so this thing was in beta, and I had been an estimator, and I saw this, and I said, "This is very different. This is fundamentally different." This is back when you had computer labs, and you could go to the lab and put your floppies in and do a little bit of work with VisiCalc, and Lotus was sort of coming on, and Excel was very, very nascent at the time. And I thought this is really interesting, and so I ended up really kind of being intrigued by the technology, and then I ended up working with a Timberline reseller for a while and started the CAD integration, right? So 1988 was sort of my first major CAD to estimating project. And I thought, you know what, this could be the future. I'd like to go to Florida and study this more and really explore this CAD to estimating integration. This is all pre-BIM now, right?
Yeah.
Still dealing with 2D and primitives and all that kind of good stuff.
Brilliant. And I love people that just throw themselves at things. And it was obviously, you were pretty adamant. Once you saw this, you went, there's a serious future in this. Because I think I deal with graduates all the time and young engineers that ring me up and go, Gareth, I'm kind of at a crossroads. What's going to be the future? And you can see the guys that are really passionate about specific things. And they're a little bit afraid to kind of specialize in one thing in case they pigeonhole themselves. Whereas in fact, if you do specialize in one thing and you can put that word beside your name, specialist in this, it generally will reap rewards.
I absolutely agree with you. And I would just encourage those that are young, that are thinking about this, that the time to take this risk is when you're young.
Yeah.
You're unencumbered.
Yeah.
You don't have a family. You don't have a lot of debt, hopefully, other than maybe some student debt. but you can take those risks, and ideally you've got some opportunity for field experience to really understand the business. One of the things I've seen, and I sort of lived through the whole .com bubble and that whole mess. A lot of really smart people came into this space, thinking they could just sort of take their smarts and apply it and they were done. And they just didn't have enough knowledge of the domain to really understand what they didn't know.
Yeah.
Right. So it's absolutely important to have people take risks and push the envelope and try to make, I do it because I like to give back. Right. So you want to make the place better, by the time you leave, as opposed to simply taking from the place. And so that's a lot of why we do what we do, is to give back. And it's a great thing to move the industry forward, but also having some connection to the domain to really understand, where you are in it. It's tough if you never come from this place.
Yeah, I see it all the time. Tech companies coming in, software engineers going, you know what? Construction hasn't moved forward in the last 40 or 50 years. I'm going to bring it forward within the next year, and then we're just going to catch them. It just does not happen like that. It's like you've got to understand the heritage, the culture, where it's been, how it's come through there. And as you say, the day-to-day struggles of guys on there and their mindset of how they like to build things and how they like to work.
Yeah. You have to have that humility about the people that have been doing this all their lives, and the complexities of really the fractured nature of the supply chain, the project-oriented methodology of delivery, the uniqueness of each project where it's tough to replicate. Just recently, the KATERRA initiative sort of blew up, right? And there was one that was going to basically modernize and productize construction, right? So they came in guns a-blazing, and I thought, wow, this could be a real turning point for construction if they can pull this off. Obviously, it didn't work out. And
what happened, Nick?
I don't know the details. I met with KATERRA a number of times over the years. They really were going after, almost a reset of how construction was to be delivered, really control, almost going back to the master builder meets production automation kind of, and put it in a blender and see what happens. And they were really trying to turn construction on its head, so to speak, with, just really controlling the whole supply chain almost. And I think it just, it got out of hand, and it just wasn't as easy as they thought it was, which is the classic case of,
And again, like I said about the software engineers, the tech companies coming in here, it was almost like that. It was almost like, we're going to come in here and do it our way, instead of actually looking what's happening right now, maybe taking 4 or 5 different workflows and you basically bringing them forward first. They just come in, rip the whole history up, and just said, no, we're going to do it our way.
It's whenever you see somebody come in and as I like to say, they want to try to boil the ocean.
That's exactly.
Be very wary, right?
And I think, to be honest with you, I was excited about it when it happened, and I'm sure you were. But it just shows you that if you don't respect the industry, you're gonna, not that they didn't respect it, but if you don't understand it a little bit more than you should, and to be honest with you, you can never just flip something on its head and it's going to work. You've got to do it slowly.
And as construction itself. Yeah, construction itself doesn't move necessarily, on a dime. It takes a long time. It's got a lot of inertia. You got to give everybody a chance to digest it. They digest it slowly. They're risk takers. So they're always, trying to mitigate the risks all the time. It's not just sort of a haphazard market. It's I have great respect for our clients because of the risks that they take. And frankly, because of the unbelievable tight margins for the risks that they take. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I think that's something that's got to change. I honestly do. I'm a firm believer that the margins are too small. I don't understand how we're going to get the numbers to work even better, but especially even at all levels, the high end, the mid-sized companies, the smaller companies, they're taking too much risk for not enough margin, and that leaves them then short on innovation and moving forward. And this is part of the problem. They can't then reinvest the profits into an R&D or the technology or innovation. And they've only got a small amount of money to spend on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We see the same thing. We deal with lots of engineering type clients as well, design engineers, general contractors and all that. The further you get towards the design side of the delivery process, the less margin they have, right? In essence, if I had to say, contractors are in a better position to invest in R&D, even as tight as their margins are, than the designers and the design engineers are. They are by far even the tightest when it comes to that type of investment. So it's tight all the way around. I guess.
And I can see. I mean, we always talk about on the podcast about the three-legged stool. You've got the client, the architect, and the contractor. I believe that the shift and the control of data and everything will be left with the contractor. They'll be given.
It looks that way.
They'll be given.
Yeah, it looks like it's all headed in that direction. And if you look at big gorillas like Autodesk, right? They're pouring just tons and tons of money into that space, and buying up companies and their own R&D, and that's their growth model is the C of the AEC. Yeah. And so I think that they're seeing it as well. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so let's get stuck into pre-construction and estimating. Obviously, that's what we're all about. So the majority of this audience will be pre-construction professionals, right, or estimating professionals, or generally junior young engineers that have just graduated, that are interested in technology. So give us a quick overview of what you're seeing within the technology space, pre-construction technology space. What challenges you're seeing from small businesses, mid-sized businesses, and even larger businesses that you work with?
Yeah, so our primary market is the larger companies with some mid-size. We tend not to deal with too many small companies, although we get calls all the time. We help them out. It's just not our target market. The small ones are all trying to look the part, if you will. They're all trying to figure out how fast they can get up to speed with what the big guys are doing. So they're always looking up, right? They're always looking up to see what is the big GC in town doing, what should I be doing along those lines. They're all wearing multiple hats, and so you've got oftentimes the small guys, the PM is the estimator, sometimes the owner is the estimator, that kind of thing. And so they're stretched pretty thin, but really bright people, really great people, trying to make it work. If you go to the very top, it's a lot about organization. It's a lot about leveraging that historical data in a way to empower people to make better decisions. It's about streamlining operations and finding ways to trying to balance out the need for the flexibility of Excel, right? In essence, unencumbered art form in Excel versus structured environment that forces people through a controlled process. And I would describe it as a dial, not a switch. A lot of times people come into this thinking it's a switch. Well, if I buy this tool in this box, I'm going to dump Excel, and that's the last thing that happens, right? Excel sticks around and it's there, and even though you try to eliminate it, sorry, it's just part of the game, and it's going to be there, and it still dominates. Excel is still the dominant estimating tool in the marketplace, even after doing this for 35 years. Vendors come and go. Excel has outlasted all of them.
Good. And what do you think the reason for that is? Is it because of its durability, but obviously flexibility? It's agile.
Yeah, I mean, Excel lets you perform your art in a way that is almost like a blank slate. In essence, there's no constraints around what you can do, and it's like a scalpel, right? It's a beautiful instrument, but it can cut you terribly. And there isn't anyone who has used Excel that hasn't had an error that hasn't hurt them, and in some cases, terribly hurt them. Right. So what oftentimes happens is, the smaller mid-sized guys use Excel, and then at some point in time, something blows up.
Yeah.
Like something just kills them, and they go, okay, we're never doing this again. So let's go find a relational database type application that will help us not ever do this again. And those tools can do that.
And this is it, right? So this has happened to industries, financial services, insurance, IT, everything. So it is happening. And the challenges of change or transformation it's difficult and it's hard, and it takes a lot of heavy lifting at the beginning.
It's brutal. It's really, really brutal. Yeah.
And is that the hardest part of it? Like literally, of the clients that you've dealt with, say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, are they now through that and going, you know what? They ring you up and go, Nick, this was the best thing that we've ever done.
It takes years. And for the ones that have the willingness to hang in there, right, and fight through it, and keep the leadership, pressing forward, and having the supporting cast really make that transformation, there's genuinely gold on the other side. But it takes years. It really takes years. And unfortunately, whether it's the naivete of the salesperson, maybe they're trying to hit their quarterly numbers, who knows? Maybe it's just the thrill from the buyer side of being sort of uneducated, unclear about what they're really buying. You end up with just tremendous failures. There's a high failure rate of construction estimating software for various reasons. And so there's a lot of dead soldiers sitting out on, in the battlefield from all vendors, not just, including us. It's just there's failure that happens for different reasons. And we can go into that, but it's very real. And this is a tough thing to get through. Yeah.
What's the biggest no? What's the biggest red flag when you're consulting with a vendor or a company and saying, listen, they go, listen, we're thinking about this. And you go, you know what? I don't think you're ready.
Well, so a lot of times they don't understand that estimating has a methodology to it. And there are different types of methodologies that apply to different types of estimating. Some are better than others for the given purpose. And so sometimes people are familiar with a tool and they show up at a new company and they say, oh, I know how to use this tool, so I'll bring it with me into this new company. Well, but the methodology, right, the type of work that the new company is involved with is radically different than what they were involved with before. That tool doesn't apply to that world.
Yeah.
Sometimes the tool is overly complicated. Sometimes the tool is too mundane. Sometimes it just is, going in the wrong direction, and it's a square peg in a round hole. And you end up with a failure not because people didn't try, it's just they didn't understand what they were getting themselves into. And so you end up with a person who's an operator, a mechanic of a tool, thinking that they are now an implementer of a tool.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. Sometimes they're great at operational use of the tool, have no idea on how to stand it up and make it work within a culture.
Yeah, because there's no doubt about it. Everybody, whether you're small, mid, or large, you're all thinking about historical data right now. It's the go-to thing, and anybody not thinking about it now is going to be so far behind the 8 ball in 4 or 5 years' time. It's not even fair thinking about. So a mid-sized company doing 600, 700 million a year, historical data. If they're at the start of their historical data process and they're just about to get started, what advice would you give them?
Planning. I'd say plan. Start with very light prototyping. You can do this in Excel. You can start to get organized in terms of how you structure your data, how you categorize things. Sometimes, with our clients, they don't even call the same project the same thing. Like if the organization's big enough and they have enough offices across the country, one office is calling it something, another office is calling it something else. They're talking about the same thing. They don't even realize it. They're talking about the same thing. So getting a common, taxonomy, a common nomenclature about, the types of projects, the characteristics of the projects, call them attributes, call them characteristics, whatever it is. And then coming up with an elemental structure, a coding structure that says we can all agree on this level of detail, this method of collecting data and all that. Everybody's got historical data, right? Everybody's got it. And every contractor pitches owners with, pick us because we have great historical data. And it's the same pitch every time, right? So if you're pitching that, you're not beating anybody else because they're doing the same thing, right? They're all client driven, they're all safety oriented, they all have great historical data, right? That's no longer a differentiator.
Great historical data for exactly the project that they're looking to build.
That's right.
Okay.
More often.
And listen, you're right that they probably do have it, but being able to gather that, maintain it, and then
No.
and then the biggest thing that I'm a visual person, and
Yeah.
I think what 70-75% of the world are visual people.
Yeah.
How do you then display that in such a way that takes advantage of it and basically wows the client?
Well, so you turn it into graphics and visualizations, and you can do something, with Excel. Excel has a very nice, graphing capability. It does take some heavy lifting, and it does take some smarts to make Excel do what it wants to do, but that's a natural tool to use. Power BI, right? Tableau, two great tools that are out there now in doing that. We focus on sort of specialized applications for this space. So we have an application that steps above, Power BI for a dedicated pre-construction historical management tool, and some of the things that we're doing for cost modeling going forward, some of the work we're doing with machine learning and AI going forward. We think that's part of that future. But starting up, Excel is a wonderful data modeling tool that can sort of get you pointed in the right direction, and everybody's got it, so you don't have to pay for the tech. Most of the bigger guys have Power BI, right? The thing that I would say, going back to what we said earlier, is that Power BI is no longer a differentiator, right? So everybody's got it. You don't go out there and swing for the fences with SharePoint. Why? Because everybody's running SharePoint. You don't do it with Excel. Well, you can't do it with Power BI anymore because it's out there and everybody's running it. So how are you going to separate yourself from everybody else? It's no longer an ace. It's just, it's a Me Too thing.
Yeah, and that's it as well. I mean, Power BI. Anybody I speak with, they use Power BI, and if it's working, it's great and stuff like that. But how important is it within the team? So say you have a team of 10 pre-construction professionals. So obviously senior pre-construction managers, maybe 4 or 5 senior estimators, and then a couple of junior people. Are we going to see a database administrator becoming the norm within these companies? Are we going to see a dedicated resource dealing with historical data, dealing with manipulating the database and presenting?
Yeah, so great question. So the companies that are more advanced in this have a part-time or 3/4 time resource that is dedicated to this. And really, if you think about the whole sort of digital divide, right? Which side of the divide are you on, right? Are you on that sort of left side of still in the past, sort of paying lip service to data, lip service to automation, lip service to, digital transformation? Or are you on the right side of that that divide, which says, hey, we know where the future is going. We have to be ready for this. We know it's going to take us years to get there. We know we can't achieve the machine learning and AI without data. We know we have to have that. So without that, you're never going to get to that place where the industry is going. You're always going to be behind. So those organizations are making the investments now, knowing that with data, they can do wonderful things. Because
that's the one that really gets me. I'm really interested in the diversity of how a team is made up. I mean, do you do a KATERRA and you go in and go, right, we're changing everything, we're going to go, and this is the way we're going to work? Or do you slowly but surely just put someone in there, junior estimator, and go, right, you're going to maintain this, you're going to develop it, and then through time you're going to teach the more senior people in there, and they're actually going to teach you why they think it shouldn't be used like this, and you're going to say, well, actually it should be used like this because it can actually give us this output, and in 2 or 3 years you'll see that after this project's finished.
Yeah, so great point there. So we advocate to take the junior resources and put them into this world for a couple of reasons. One is your senior people are way too valuable to be cleaning data, normalizing data, doing all that, right? They're out there selling work, they're keeping the lights on, they're bringing fish in the boat. The young ones, right, are tech savvy, they're comfortable with technology, and you have to get over the inertia of the tech itself before you can start to, build it, and they will come, and that's get enough critical mass there. A young person can really learn about the history of the company by doing this.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they, as you know, right, they don't have the experience. So how do they gain the experience? Well, they can study that experience through the historical data and really become much more valuable to the organization, by being that person that has sort of accumulated this knowledge and distributed the knowledge to empower everybody else to make better decisions. So it's a great place to get the junior involved, and then have a senior person review and bless what they've done.
Brilliant.
That's sort of the way to go.
And I get it all the time. No, I don't want to speak to that person. They haven't been on the site. They haven't done their project engineer. They haven't been a field engineer. They haven't been an APM, a project manager on a full project from start to finish. So they don't know the mistakes that can happen on site. So that's perfect. So it's almost learning by numbers and learning by data on the mistakes. And as they're reviewing projects and gathering data, they're going, well, wow, they originally thought that the MEP package was going to be this amount. Why did it turn out to be this amount?
Yeah, so it's really it's a way to jumpstart your experience, if you will, right? In understanding the bigger picture and understanding how the data comes together for the organization. One of the things that we found is that there's a religious battle between, do you capture estimate history or do you capture as-built actual history, right? Okay. And and they're both right. There's no right or wrong answer here, right? But that's a religious battle that happens inside of organizations and for different purposes. There's always a challenge when you look at those two data sets. I like to say we estimate an apple, but we build an orange.
Yeah. Well,
and so, those two just don't necessarily mesh up all that well. And that's a real difficult thing for organizations, depending on who the main consumer is, depending on your philosophy of what you look at from a historical data standpoint. That's something that every organization struggles with, and there's no easy answer here. And we can get into all the details as to why it's challenging, but it's a very real thing. The historical data capture is a very tough thing. And what I mean by that is it is trivial to throw data in Power BI. It's trivial to do that. Is it good data though? Is it clean data? Is it trusted data? Whole different conversation. And what we've learned is you can't just take your operational data, meaning you can't just take estimating data and throw it at Power BI. You can't just take your as-built data and just throw it at Power BI and you think you're going to get a data set that is meaningful and makes sense. You have to cleanse it. You have to normalize it. You have to have standards. You have to have transformation. And ideally, you're taking your operational data and putting it in a place that's going to outlive your operational tool. Right? A new mousetrap is going to come every 5 years. If you have your historical data trapped in that mousetrap and you want to replace it, it's going to break the bank to try to do all that in the future. Where that historical data, if the company's been around for 50 years, that thing needs to outlive any of the operational tools that you're selecting.
Wow.
It's a risk mitigation strategy of not being tied to a single vendor and having your most valuable asset, in my opinion, your historical data outside of the hands of that operational tool, whatever it is.
Yeah. So how do you do that, Nick, then? Because if the software or the product that you buy kind of gobbles it up, can they spit it back out? I mean, surely it can, or does it be saved in an external?
Yeah, you pull it out and save it in a place that you can control. That's exactly right. Yeah, so you move it out, but you don't grab everything, right? So in essence, think of it from an estimator's perspective. These big estimates sometimes have 20 versions of the DD estimate, right? Because you're hitting it every couple of days or every once a week or whatever it is. Well, then you start multiplying that by all of the supporting estimates that make up those DD estimates. You then have all the CD estimates that follow it. You had the schematics and the conceptuals before that. You may end up with hundreds of estimates. Well, but you only want one representation of that historical data in your project. You don't want all hundreds, right? So you have to be very selective about the good estimates that belong in the history system to serve as a trusted benchmark, so that people can look at that and say, I'm looking at good data, rather than I arrived, but now I'm looking over my shoulder wondering, is this good data?
Wow.
If you can't maintain that integrity and that quality, then even looking at a bunch of Power BI dashboards doesn't really buy you any confidence, because you don't know if you can trust the data.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got to, probably the first thing that you've got to decide then is the workflows and the actual data you capture, because you could capture hundreds of thousands of items or whatever it may be. But and is it better, obviously, by the sounds of what we're talking about, it's better to start really small and especially within projects, maybe even use the standard divisions or something along those lines.
Starting small, keep it simple. Learn about the metrics that you're trying to derive from the data. That's a key part here. It's, Power BI, we see that where they try to just sort of put up pretty pictures and lots of nice graphs and all that kind of stuff, but they haven't really studied what the cost drivers are, right? They're in there trying to figure this stuff out. They don't have their primary KPIs dialed in yet. You really want all this raw data to really turn into meaningful information to help you understand your risks and all that. That's where you sort of have to focus on taking it is from just the raw data capture into meaningful information, and it just takes time to get there. One thing that we've learned is that the young generation, the millennials coming in, they have grown up with information at their fingertips.
Yeah.
They get up every day and they pray to the Google God, right? And they ask the Google God a question. Google, what's this answer? And magically Google goes back and says, there's 3 million pages that I can, give you here and all that kind of thing, right? So they're accustomed to information is at my fingertips. And because they've gotten accustomed to that, they actually don't remember things anymore. They don't have to.
Yeah.
Right? Think about it, right? So
do they get frustrated then that they can't, like the information when they go into work and they want a pre-construction Google or a pre-construction Alexa, they ask the question?
Yes, they're shocked. They're like, wait a minute, I've gone through all this education and I've had information at my fingertips and I'm a really smart person. So if you ask me to solve a problem, I can do it. Where's the data?
Yeah.
And then everybody in the organization is staring at their shoes because they don't have the data for that young person who they just hired to make a great decision. Yeah. And that young person is going, are you people in the Stone Ages, right? Because where is the data that I need to make a good decision?
Well, Nick, the data is in the 3 people that have just gone out for lunch.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Or the ones that are retiring, right?
Exactly. That's the knowledge retention that we need, because the amount of people that I speak to that are walking out of the industry in the next 5 or 10 years, with those guys out of the industry, the capacity deficit is going to get way, way bigger than what we have to do.
It's unbelievable. We just see it. It's a problem. It's a looming problem that's going to exacerbate. And if the construction industry can't find a way to attract this talent and draw them in, they're going to lose them. They're going to lose them to other industries.
But Nick, this is the problem as well. So we talked about the problem about the margins, right? They haven't got enough money to invest in innovation, R&D. They actually don't have enough money, and they're not thinking long term enough on, for instance, MEP at the minute. I'm doing a lot of recruitment within MEP, and it's crazy. There's probably 24 MEP fire protection guys in the US that can do the job, and they're all 54 and above.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So when those guys leave, it's gone.
We're not growing them as an industry. We're just, you're absolutely right. We are not growing those people as an industry, and there's a looming problem that's going to happen, and we're trying to offset that with technology and automation. Right. We're trying to do our part here to help companies get there, but they still have to make that investment. Either you're going to grow those people somehow through some apprentice program, or you're going to empower them with tech and data to help them make better decisions. It's going to be one or the other.
Because there's not enough time between a 54-year-old retires, there's not enough time to get them au fait with technology or get the information within their head on their technology database or historical database. So to me, they've got to grow the teams. So they've got to get 4 or 5 people under these people and just constant knowledge retention, just literally puke out everything that they've got, get it into these young minds, and then get the young minds dealing with the technology that's coming up.
Yeah, this is a knowledge management strategy, right? But it is a conscious strategy, right, to make the investment, as opposed to, I just want to look the part, therefore I check the box on Power BI and I'm done, right? It's a different mindset altogether. The other part that really concerns me, I guess, along these lines is that, if you look at the Forbes surveys, people, stick around for about 3 to 4 years now.
Yeah.
Right. I know, these numbers and they come out every couple of years. Right. But, it's, if you're less than 35 years old, it's like 3 years, 3.2 years, 3.1 years is what you're sticking around. So as a business owner, you should be expecting this sort of revolving door of people, right, leaving your organization, right? And so if you spend those 3 years investing in them and growing them and, looking for them to be that MVP, lead 10 years from now, chances are they're not sticking around.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, they're definitely not going to stick around if you haven't got your technology stack in order. And
that's right.
That's the other thing. I mean, you're going to see a gravitation with all of these good, bright, young 20, 30-year-olds, and they're going to move to the top guys.
Well, they're gonna look for, so everybody wants to be successful, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have an opportunity to choose between different employers, you're going to say, where can I be where do I have the greatest chance of success? Yeah. Right? What's the most interesting place? And the ability to get there. Sorry about that. The ability to get there. The ability to get there is just a real challenge for people to come in and find the right home. And if there are 3 employers and one of them is offering the right tool set, the right data, the right mechanisms to be successful, and the other 2 are not, you pretty much know where they're going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing it already. They're asking me, they're starting to ask me, and I'm not talking about the graduates because they haven't experienced as much, but the 25 to 35-year-olds are asking me, what's their tech stack? What are they using? What's their plans over the next 5 or 10 years? But what the big thing I want to get at is as well, what excites you right now, Nick? Where are we at when it comes to pre-construction estimating, pre-construction technology? Where are we at now? What excites you when you talk about machine learning, AI?
Yeah. So the thing that excites me the most is the ability to leverage the collective historical data in a way to empower people to make decisions and support them in those. And I don't mean the idea of technology forecasting for the user. In essence, I'm just going to trust this black box to come up with a number, and I'm going to put my name on it. I don't think that'll happen in my lifetime. I'm not sure it'll happen in any lifetime that anybody's willing to just put, $100 million bet on an algorithm from a computer.
Yeah.
But I do see, right, the opportunity for the technology to augment, right? So instead of artificial intelligence, let's call it augmented intelligence, where it really empowers people to understand relationships that they never saw before. And it takes, 25 years or 20 years or whatever it is for someone to be doing the same thing to really understand correlations and, what's really driving the cost of this or what's really driving the risk of this. I think the tech can actually help show them those correlations, show them those cost drivers, show them where the risks are so that they can make better decisions, going forward. But it's about supporting their decision-making process, not replacing it.
Exactly. It's been able to expedite the whole process as much as possible because, I mean, it's impossible to go the way we're going now as an industry. It's going to be impossible to build the hospitals, build the roads, build the schools with the current amount of staff and resources we have, people. So we're going to need as many, if not more people, and we're going to need technology to pick up a lot of that as well.
I think so. I was really hoping that BIM, right, would be that sort of next big catalyst in construction estimating, where BIM could eliminate much of, if not most of, the quantification part of the process. It just hasn't happened, right? BIM is great. It does wonderful things in so many places, and it also helps pre-construction, but it has not produced the gold that I think everybody, at least myself, we're hoping for around cost estimating. Yeah, it's just not there yet. And so go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I still think there's a chance that it could happen, but as you say, how long's it been going now? It's been going a long time.
Long time, right? 20 years plus, right? Call it, even more and 30, whatever it is. One of the huge inefficiencies of our industry is that everybody that is pursuing a project is counting the same damn toilets.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
and that is just insane, right? For having 20, 30, 50 companies all trying to count the same number of toilets, right? And come up with an answer. We should be focused on, execution strategy and logistics and, pricing strategies, as opposed to, did I count all the damn toilets on the job?
And whoever left one of the toilets out actually wins the project, and is
exactly, right?
Put under increased pressure to deliver.
There's just such low value in that part of the work process, and yet we're all forced to come up with it and do the exact same thing over and over again. So
I mean, to me, I don't think we share enough as well within pre-construction and estimating specifically. I'm going to kind of remove the BIM BDC crew, because I have to say, dealing with that network, they're incredible. They are happy to show, to put things on YouTube, to put on classes, webinars. But pre-construction and estimating, there's still this idea that I'm not going to tell my mate down the road what I'm doing or how I'm doing it, because they don't know how I'm going to do it. Unless we talk about it and help each other get better at it, the differentiator should be the people. You know what I mean? The people that are selling these things, the people that are building it, the people that are doing the business development, and the technology should be there. And until we start sharing ideas and get user groups on, like a user group within pre-construction technology of 100,000 people in the US, surely will bring the industry forward quicker than anything else.
Yeah, I think it'll help a lot. We do see IPD, right? Integrated project delivery. That is a step in the right direction. That's a place where we see a lot more sharing of information. We do see owners being much more open to sharing. We do see design engineers being more open to sharing. Contractors, it goes back to, I think, what we talked about earlier, which is, the margins are so tight. Everybody's trying to find an edge. The last thing they want to do is give up their edge.
And that's it. Yeah. And listen, I can understand that. I just think there's got to be a little bit of a loosening of the string when it comes to sharing and trying collaborating and trying to do things better. And I'm sure joint ventures and IPD that that will come. But Nick, before we kind of wrap up, I want to get a sense of, there's always shiny toys coming out, technology, software. Is there anything out there now that excites you, that you're seeing coming through, somebody's working on, that you think, you know what, this is going to tweak things and it's going to get us a little bit towards where we need to go?
I think one of the areas that's exciting to me is this idea of automating the quantification from the 2D world. And what I mean by that is we're still stuck in a 2D world. All of our construction documents are 2D. People are still ultimately using those things to measure. That world has not really changed. I mean, the whole idea of paper versus digital, right? That happened 30 years ago was great. It's a great move forward, but we're still manually picking up that stuff in 2D as opposed to paper, right? Didn't really move the ball forward that much, other than, dropping paper, which is great for the trees and the environment, but workflow hasn't changed. I would say, the advancement of that in a more intelligent way would be a big step forward in our industry, if given that BIM has not replaced it.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any new shiny toys out there that we should know about within pre-construction tech?
No, I think right now there's still quite a bit of thrashing around of the old ways, and like I said, I think the market is ripe for disruption. There hasn't been a real material change, in my opinion, in the tool sets for some time. And so I'm still waiting to see who's going to come up with that new widget, that new toy, if you will, that can really change the game. It just hasn't come up.
Yeah. So, and somebody will just come and blow it all away.
They need to. Yeah.
As you say, let's hope it happens in me and your life like that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, Nick, I want to just, for anybody listening here that's interested in getting in touch with you, using your services, where's the best place to get you? Can you give us like an email address, a contact number?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So you're welcome to reach out to me directly, nickp@eosgroup.com. You can go to our website, eosgroup.com, and we can capture your information, and we'll be happy to talk with you. And no pressure. We're not trying to sell you anything. It's just a matter of providing the right guidance to you. And if we can help you, great. And if we can't, we'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah, even from our chat, companies that are thinking about historical data, it's great that they're thinking about that way and they're going that way. But
right.
to just go there with their head in the sand and just go for it and start collecting data without consulting like the likes of EOS and other firms, it would be crazy. And it's probably that consultation at the beginning that can really give them an idea whether they should go ahead with it, not go ahead with it, or point them in the right direction.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely some knowledge that we've built up over the last 25 years that could really help.
Brilliant. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do as well, Nick. Below all posts, and if anybody's listening, all information will be in the comment section, or I'll put it below the videos.
Great. That's wonderful. Thanks very much. Very much, Nick, appreciate the opportunity.
It's been a pleasure, and we will be bringing more on, Nick, as well within specific topics. But today was a fantastic overview of what it's like out there and what you can provide.
Okay, very good. Thanks for the opportunity again. It was great.
Thanks, Nick.